Welcome back, guys. Still tuned in to News and Views. Well, the Wednesday edition of News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidir, on a beautiful, beautiful, sunny Wednesday morning here in Johannesburg. I hope wherever you are, it's also as bright and as beautiful as it is in our part of the world. In a bit, we'll be delving into a very, very powerful address made by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa at the UN General Assembly. Where he drew on South Africa's own history of apartheid to call for an end to the ongoing oppression of Palestinians. President Cyril Ramaphosa declared, "We will not remain silent and watch as apartheid is perpetrated against others," and highlighted South Africa's legal action against Israel through the International Court of Justice, the, much publicized ICJ case that is currently ongoing. The president also addressed the need for broader reforms within the UN Security Council and emphasized Africa's role in shaping a safer global order. And to help us unpack the significance of this speech and its potential global impact, I'm joined by Professor Anthoni van Nieuwkerk, an expert in international diplomacy studies at the University of South Africa. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us your time. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
I think first and foremost, if you can, just from your observation, a bit of a summary on President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech at the UN General Assembly. What did you make of it? Did it fully encapsulate South Africa's position when it comes to the issue of Palestine and where we plan to go after this ICJ case? I don't know if there's some end to it and a judgment is made.
Yeah, so thanks for the invite. It's always good to talk to you. It's a complicated matter. I think the context of President Ramaphosa's pronouncements on Gaza, Israel, the Palestinian cause, and the latest developments forms part of a bigger presentation that he made in New York at the General Assembly meeting, because the members of the United Nations, I think there's 193 of them, have gathered to discuss and negotiate and adopt a so-called pact or an agreement for the future. This is in realization that despite many progress over many years, with development and peace and security, there are many outstanding issues that threatens humanity, from nuclear weapons proliferation to climate change to ongoing violence, unequal economic relations, exploitation, and so on and so forth. There's quite a list of challenges. And this is a renewed attempt by the members of the United Nations by the international community, this big family, to come together to see if they can agree on a couple of very important principles for this organization, which is the only one that has global reach in terms of addressing and trying to resolve some of these problems, these common issues that humanity faces. It's also maybe a realization that there are shortcomings and weaknesses. So he went there to represent the South African position, but also he spoke as an African, so he has a continental sort of reach. And he spoke very well. He showed leadership. He didn't speak about South Africa only, except he made the very telling point, which was a powerful a moment in his address. Remember, he's one of 190, presidents who must make an impression on the General Assembly. So he chose his words carefully, and he made the point which you point out, which you just mentioned, that as South Africans, we know about oppression, violence, and apartheid. We see this is happening elsewhere, particularly in Gaza, the West Bank, the Palestinian territories, and now in southern Lebanon. And he spoke out very strongly against that. And he reiterated, he didn't announce anything new, but he reiterated the South African government's position on this issue, which is it is opposed to the use of violence. He could have made a stronger statement. I wanted him to say that we oppose terrorism in all forms, a terror campaign by the Netanyahu government in Lebanon. he didn't use those strong words because he wanted to make the point that, in my analysis, that South Africa is part of a team which is trying to put the spotlight and the emphasis on the behavior of the State of Israel. And perhaps, if you decode his message, the time has arrived for the international community. Remember, he's talking in front of 193 presidents. To say that it is time for the international community to take hands and find a way to isolate the State of Israel or the Netanyahu government, to pressurize it, to sanction it, and to force it to change its behavior. He touched a little bit, the other sentence I wanted to make, he touched a little bit about the need for the reform of the global system or institutions of governance, because it is found wanting. And if I'm very critical, I must say that the United Nations and the Security Council are unable to bring peace to the Middle East. Unfortunately, it is hobbled. It is the permanent five on the Security Council. They use their veto to oppose each other when they want to bring resolutions to the table. And so he was saying that now it's time maybe for an international concerted campaign. Remember the anti-apartheid movement? He's talking in that kind of language and that philosophy. And he's also saying, but he didn't spell out South Africa's own, desire to join the Security Council as a permanent member. He did say that there's a consensus now that Africa needs to be present, to have a permanent presence on the Security Council, because 70-80% of its business really relates to conflict resolution on the continent of Africa.
I would like us to stick a bit on that theme, the UN Security Council, Ramaphosa describing it as not being inclusive enough. How likely are we to see any real changes in the structures of the Security Council? And in literal terms, what would a more inclusive UN Security Council look like?
Yeah, so I think our listeners know very well that the five. So the Security Council is an organ of the United Nations. It's an instrument to promote or maintain or restore peace and security globally. So members can come to the Security Council and say there's a conflict in my country, or there's a conflict between me and the other one, or the Security Council itself, the Secretary General of the UN, can say to the Security Council, I am observing a conflict that is breaking up between A and B. Refer the matter to the Security Council. It is a powerful organ because some of the decisions it makes can be enforced. Other UN organs do not have that enforcement mechanism. And to do that job, the Security Council consists of 15 members. 5 are there on a permanent basis. Their seats are forever filled, and we know who they are. It's the victors of the Second World War, those who beat the Nazis and the Japanese and the Italians at the time, and it's the Americans, the British and the French on the one side, and the Russians and the Chinese on the other side. So there's a P3 and a P2 together. It makes the P5. All of them have the veto right. If they don't like the resolution that members bring to the table, they can say, we veto this, we do not agree, and then the decision can't be taken. The other 10 are selected by the General Assembly, by members of the UN, on a rotating basis, every 3 years, I think, or so. Members are selected to serve on the Security Council on a non-permanent basis. And the General Assembly has selected South Africa 3 times since 1994 to serve on the Security Council on a non-permanent basis. And the voting goes via regions. So Africa gets a chance, Latin America, Asia, Europe, and so on and so forth. But the time has now come for the Security Council to enlarge its permanent membership. So there's an obvious disadvantage if you are on the Security Council dealing with complex matters requiring your full attention, and you're only there for a short period of time, and you might return there 10 years later. So that really hobbles, progress. If you're a permanent member, and you have the resources, you can pay real attention to the real issues and you can help set the agenda. Africans are saying, this is now our time. We deserve 2 permanent seats. And I think everybody's agreeing on this. But now there are problems. I'm skeptical. I'm doubtful that this is going to happen. Because other countries are saying the same thing. You know, in Latin America, there's Brazil. It's a very powerful country. It's the regional leader in Latin America. Brazil says, what about us? The world's third largest economy is Japan. The Japanese are saying, what about us? The one of the largest Muslim communities in the world in Indonesia saying, what about us? India is saying, I've got 1.2 billion people. What about me? So right there, the international community is stuck. They don't know how to select, appropriate members. And if I may say, when it comes to us in Africa, we've decided, or the African Union. So countries in Africa belong to the African Union. There's 54 of us. We've come to an agreement that the AU will decide who gets the 2 permanent seats. If that door opens, Africa must come and say, here are our 2 candidates, A and B, and the AU will decide. Everybody in the AU is fighting amongst everybody else to say, I'm the appropriate candidate. And there are obvious candidates. There are strong economies, and there are countries with peacekeeping experience and diplomatic, expertise. Algeria, Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and so on. Now, which 2 do you choose? This is going to take a long time, in my view. And even the agreement that the United Nations General Assembly reached yesterday or in the past couple of days, this pact for the future, to do things better in the future, says in one of the clauses, I think number 39, I think I saw this morning, that it will try its best to negotiate, the enlargement of the Security Council, which means there's no agreement yet. There's an agreement that we negotiate a way forward, but there's no outcome yet. This might take years, and I think our attention and our energy might have to be focused elsewhere because it's a no-win situation.
No, definitely. Prof, I want us to take a quick break, but then when we come back, the president's speech also called into question South Africa's balancing act between maintaining economic ties with countries that support Israel and upholding its principled stance on Palestine. I want us to touch on how this almost delicate balancing act, may affect South Africa's diplomatic and trade relationships, particularly with countries in the West. But we'll touch on that a bit after this short break.
Alarm Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you ready to ignite a wave of compassion and make a lasting impact? This Rabi ul Awal, let's come together for something truly meaningful. Join Penny Appeal South Africa's Rabi ul Awal campaign. Build a water well, provide a hot meal, sponsor a food garden, or plant an olive tree in Palestine or fruit tree in South Africa. Make a difference today. Visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Your giving, their dawn of hope.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Get ready for the Palestine Solidarity Alliance 15th Annual Mass March for Freedom. 6 October, Rose Park, Lenasia. Tickets and t-shirts are on sale every weekend at Frontline Hyper Lenasia. Support a variety of pop-ups and be a part of a community dialogue with prominent guest speakers while receiving feedback on the various solidarity events. For more information, simply call 083-258-2786. Don't miss the Palestine Solidarity Alliance 15th Annual Mass March for Freedom, 6 October, Rose Park, Lenasia.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, buckies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. Still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salalo Makwidi, on the Wednesday edition of News and Views. Thank you so much for staying with us. And we're still chatting to Professor Anthoni van Nieuwkerk, Professor of International and Diplomacy Studies at the University of South Africa. Prof, thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went to that short break, I made a mention of something in the president's speech. And I think this is something that South Africa will be grappling with a lot more going forward, trying to maintain, its strong stance on, their solidarity with Palestine and condemning essentially Israel on some of the, human rights violations that they're committing in Gaza and in Palestine, but also trying to maintain, some sort of diplomatic and trade relationships with some of these countries, particularly in the West and in the Middle East, that may hold a different stance to Israel, and others that may even fully support Israel. How difficult is this balancing act? Is it going to be for South Africa and President Cyril Ramaphosa going forward?
Yeah. So, Lilo, I think you put your finger on it. And there are no easy answers. Let me start by saying that, the world is changing very rapidly in front of our eyes, very dramatically. And I think we are living through a period of transition from an old to a new order, a world order, a global order. And it's marked by the decline of the power and influence of the West, led by the Americans, and the rise of a new hegemon, or an empire, if you want, in the East, which is China. And of course, China has its allies in the BRICS alliance. So it's a group of very assertive global South nations challenging the hegemony and the power of the West. So in this process of this transition, which will take a couple of years, countries like South Africa in the global South, but also others, are being asked or invited or pressurized to join the one or the other group. And our foreign policy for many years, I would say since 1994, under the ruling party, the ANC, was one of non-alignment. We are hesitant to choose the one or the other power block to throw our weight in with the one or the other one. And the idea is that you benefit from all configurations internationally to make your economy grow and to make your country stronger. It is a difficult balancing act because it might not work because the West and the Americans are quite clear. Join us, support us, and we will look after you. If you choose the other one, which are our perceived enemies, the Russians, the Chinese, and so on, these are our enemies. Iran is in the BRICS alliance. We're in the BRICS alliance. We will punish you. I will hold your feet to the fire. Don't come here and seek, better trade relations. Will make life difficult for you. By the same token, South Africa really leans towards, I think, even under the government of national unity, arguably, is seeking its fortunes in the politics and the alliances in the global south, in the developing world, if you want. And in particular, the vehicle really is the BRICS alliance, the expanded BRICS alliance. We have strong political, ideological, and economic relations with members of BRICS. And of course, the Chinese are saying, look, we can co-here, we can strengthen our relations, but why are you going to America all the time to seek, goodies there? Leave them alone, stay with us. So if you're the Minister of Foreign Affairs or a diplomat or an ambassador representing us in New York, Washington, London, Paris, wherever, you will find it very difficult to maintain that relationship. We see the pressure already. We are close to Russia, politically or ideologically. Not us, our government, or the ruling coalition partner in the government of national unity. I'm choosing my words carefully. And because we have a long-standing relationship with Russia in the BRICS context, the Americans don't like this. They say, look, the Russians are waging war in Ukraine. We supply Ukraine with weapons. South Africa, you must choose. You can't be neutral on this. And they pressurize us. The American ambassador, in fact, here in South Africa, accused the government of shipping weapons off to Ukraine. Remember that incident 2 years ago now, the Lady R ship that apparently docked in Hout Bay, I think, near Cape Town. It was all a story. None of it was true. But here's the American ambassador in South Africa accusing us of misbehaving. I mean, what kind of arrogance is this? It's an example. It shows you the power. And so, of course, there are members of the American administration who also want South Africa to be isolated because of our outspoken support, for the BRICS alliance, the worldview of the BRICS alliance, support for Russia, for China, for the Palestinian cause, opposing Israel. And so the Americans are saying, when South Africa comes and asks for better terms of trade, let's push them a little bit harder. Now, it's a balancing act because it's a two-way street. Americans benefit, we benefit, so the trade relationship is quite strong. It is also, there's a strong trade relationship with Europeans, particularly Germany. But you will find that the Europeans and Germany send weapons and money to the Netanyahu government. How is this possible? That's a story for another day. But there we are. We have strong trade relations with the Europeans. Do we cut it off because we differ ideologically or politically or ethically and morally from this kind of behavior that they show? And do we stay with BRICS only? So the approach, I think, of our government is to see where we can benefit with trade relations across the globe and not give up the one for the other because we might end up in trouble. But I want to say that if this divide that I'm talking about, this transition from an old to a new world order, if that is going to deepen, and if the fault lines continue to grow, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, the coming war in Taiwan, perhaps, then we will be forced to take a side. And I think the West, under the leadership of the Americans, we don't know whether Trump or Harris is going to win. But I must say it doesn't matter who the president of America is in winning the election in November and taking the seat in the White House in January. It doesn't matter because America has enduring security and economic interests in the world. And the president, the elected president, will serve those interests. Some say, it's a bit of a conspiracy, that there's a deep state in America that determines the course of action, not the president. I tend to agree with that. So whether we face Trump or Harris in the future, remember the Biden administration is in love with Israel and the Netanyahu government. So it's going to be very difficult, in my view, in coming months and years for South Africa to maintain a neutral position or a non-aligned position.
All right. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, Prof. Thank you so much for giving us your time and for your insights in breaking down President Ramaphosa's speech at the UN and also just the implications thereof going forward. We're going to leave it here for now. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
It was Professor Anthoni van Nieuwkerk, Professor of International and Diplomacy Studies at Unisa, giving us wonderful insights and breaking down President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech at the UN General Assembly a few days ago, where he drew on South Africa's own history of apartheid to call for an end to the ongoing oppression of Palestine. He vowed that South Africa will not stay silent on Israeli apartheid against Palestinians. In I think to a lot, a very, very powerful speech, and one that we have not seen so forceful, a very strong, forceful statement coming from South Africa in recent years. So it's going to be interesting going forward. Some of the reactions from President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech, from essentially the allies of Israel at this point, those that have vested interests and have invested their time, their energy, and most importantly, their money into making sure that this agenda, this genocidal agenda of the Israeli occupying government does prevail. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be shifting our focus to Sri Lanka after this short break.